Okay, good day. Welcome back. It's currently Wednesday, and we're in quite a week of a weather cycle here in Minnesota. Saturday it was a feel like of 102. Sunday wasn't much better. The humidity was 70+%. And now it's Wednesday, and it's cooled off, and it's rainy. It's about 66 right now. And by Saturday we're going to be right back up into that feels like 98, 99 degrees with tropical humidity. So did get quite a bit of work done this last weekend. I've got some video that you'll see here of us running the 335 around after I got the coolant leak sealed up finally. Contact. got the ampy-torque adjusted, and I've got some video of that
All right,
that I'll show.
so we're digging into the ampy-torque and trying to get this adjusted so that this lever will stay up and engaged. And I tried coming in through that side hole, and I forgot that on the gearing, or on the adjuster nut, there's a pin. And if I can show you, so here's our adjuster nut right there at the end of the wrench. The next cog over, there is a pin that holds that from turning that you need to depress. So you press the pin in, and then you can turn the adjustment nut. And that's what I forgot when I went through the hole, and I couldn't get that thing to spin. But now I have it, and now we have a solid snap in and even a harder snap out, which hopefully when the engine's turning and you get centrifugal force on those discs, and it actually loosens that mechanism up a little bit, it'll still be enough to keep it engaged like it should. Because before it would engage and then I could tap on it and it would fall out. And now it takes quite a bit to get that snapped out. And vice versa, we don't want to tighten that nut so much that the clutch pack starts to grab prematurely, because then we don't have our low gear. So I think I'm going to button it back up. Now I've got to make a small throttle adjustment. There's way too much play in the top end of the throttle. So I took the muffler off so we can get back at this, but I need to back off this keeper nut, and then I need to wind this spring out a little bit to get some more tension on that so that I have more reaction to the throttle. So this goes to the governor linkage, which runs up and back to the carburetor. So that's not the part that needs to be adjusted. The part that needs to be adjusted is this spring. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Next, we're addressing that bung that was leaking. Looked like it just was just an Allen wrench bung, so I stuck an Allen wrench in there and it went all the way through. So I stuck an easy out in there and it threaded right out, which is awesome.
We ran it for probably a good 30-40 minutes, and I'm pretty pleased with how it's running right now. So I've got her backed into the shed, and we're gonna start pressing forward on getting it prepped for paint. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So we'll head back into the shop here and we'll talk about what next steps are. I shot a video a little bit earlier of getting the fuel tank cleaned up and prepped. I'm taking a look at the fuel tank for the 335. This is the sediment bulb that came out of it, and it looks like we have some kind of caulking or something that got put around the hole, which makes me very nervous. Not sure what that's all about. I also noticed that we've got some pretty good rust going on here, and I'm a little hesitant on putting a wire brush across this. So I think I'm probably just going to use sandpaper and be real ginger. I don't think we're going to have pinholes, but not sure. And then the fuel sender is in pretty bad shape, but seeing as I can't get the correct gauges anyway, I'm not going to worry about taking the fuel sender off. I'm just going to leave it there, and hopefully this gasket doesn't leak, because I really don't want to mess with these screws. And even if it does, like the gasket on my 445 leaks, so I only fill it less than half, and that's good enough for parades and everything else. So I did see that the fuel sender's broken off, so I was going to see if I could fish it out. Oh yeah.
There's that old piece of cork that they used as a float. I'll grab the other one out of the 335, or the 445 that I saved, so you can kind of see the difference. Also managed to pull a very old stick out of the bottom of there. Didn't know it was a stick till I broke it in half. Not sure what that guy was doing in there. I did say that I was going to dig out the fuel sender from the 445, and so there it is. So you can see the old cork on the end, and this is what the fuel sender that I pulled out on the other video of the tank should have looked like. But aside from that, I just need to clean up the outside, and then I've got the kit for sealing up the inside. So that's going to get done either Friday or Saturday. And then we're going to start from the rear of the tractor and work our way forward as far as things that have to be done before I can get this thing under a coat of paint. The battery, I fabbed up a battery box, or a battery stand, I guess. And then picked up a different battery for it. In the video you see that I'm using one of those 16-inch long batteries. That's what the 445 has on it. This one unfortunately doesn't have room to have a battery like that, so I had to go with the 10x7, and it's going to get the grounding strap. It's going to get a cutoff just like I have on the 445, because I found that when you have these many tractors and you bring them to shows, people flip switches, and then before you know it, you have dead batteries. So I like to put cutoffs on just so that I know that I'm going to have a good battery to get it started again. And then I have to build a new positive wire, but that'll happen after paint. The main thing was getting that bottom frame built for the battery to sit on, and then I've got a cover coming too, so I'm not sure if the cutoff's going to be able to sit here, or if I'm going to have to use a different style cutoff so that I can put a cover on here. But that's the other thing that I've learned over the years, is if you don't have a cover on the battery, you get corrosion awful quick, and you get nothing but connection problems year after year. So I really want to get a cover put on this so that I can cut down on some of that. It'll be stored inside when it's not at shows or whatever, but it still helps with the corrosion. And then I dug out the side plates. I've got to make a decision what I'm going to do here, because when they did whatever they did to the brake lever, it doesn't line up in the hole that it's supposed to and come up to where it's supposed to on this brake lever holder, which I'm guessing is why this is not existent anymore. Oops, had to get that out of the scrap yard. But yeah, I'm not too sure what I'm going to do there yet, but that ideally covers your positive power line as it runs up from the battery to the starter. And then also, if you had a hydraulic line running from back here for an accessory, it would cover that up too. So I do want it on there. I just don't know if I'm going to cut that tab off and put this one over the top, which is probably what I'm going to do, but haven't quite determined it yet. But I got it out. That's got to get cleaned up so that when I paint, it can get under a coat of paint. And then I purchased the exhaust. Most of it's not here yet, but the tip did show up, and so it is going to run down, under, across, and out the back. My 445, the exhaust comes up through the hood, and on this one I wanted to run the exhaust down, which is going to leave me a little bit of fab work to do on those on the hood sheet metal, but we'll get into that in another video, but for right now, that's just gonna be what it is. I've got the bracket that covers the speedometer cable, which at this point it looks like I'm not going to have a speedometer to start with. I've talked before about how it's really difficult to find the right gauge cluster for these. Steiner Tractor was making them. They were making a refurbished one, and they've discontinued that. And pretty much everybody else, that if you were to type in 335 or 445 gauge cluster and you find the picture of it on Google or whatever, they were sourcing theirs from Steiner. So everybody that's got one posted, pretty much you call them up and they tell you that they're not available from the vendor anymore. But that's because Steiner quit building the ones that they had because they were having quality issues. So I started out not having one on the 445. I just had the voltage, the temperature, and the oil pressure, and that's pretty much what I'm going to have to do with this one until at some later date I can find one and I can put the right one in. I found a set of those 3 gauges plus a tachometer. I'm going to make an insert that I can put the 4 gauge set in, so it'll be 2 on this side, the tach in the middle with the hour meter, which is primarily why I want the tachometer, because I'd like to know how many hours are getting put on this since the rebuild, and then the other one will go on the other side. And this isn't the bracket I'm going to use. This is actually off of another one that I bought on eBay just to get that gauge cluster to see if I could pull it apart and potentially rebuild it, and that was also a no-go. So so that's kind of where that sits. This panel needs to get cleaned up now. So this goes right over the top of the fuel tank, and this door is where you fill the fuel tank. So these 2 brackets need to get cleaned up and ready to be painted. Again, on this side I've got the cover that hangs off the side of the transmission. Again, if you were to run, if this tractor had power steering on it, it would have a line that would come up and run underneath there along the side and then up to the steering knuckle. But this doesn't have power steering, but I am going to put that on there. And then that leads us up to the front here, where I've started to piece together the grill components. So I dug these brackets out and already started working on straightening them out. They were not in really good shape, and I'll throw a picture up so you can see what it looked like. But I got those straightened out. I got them bolted back onto the cross, and then I've got the brackets that come back to the radiator shroud, and that's what the light brackets eventually will bolt onto. But the sheet metal goes over the top of that first. So I wanted to start getting all of this lined up. You can see that to hold these steel grates in for the grill, there are these little clips right here, one on each side, and then we'll go to the other side and you might be able to see it better. On the bottom, you can't see it super well, but there's a tab that pops up. It's right there, that holds the bottom of the grating in. So the bottom gets held there, the center gets held there, and then the top, according to the manual, is supposed to be held in with a spring that looks like this, and it would clip in here, and then it would clip into the top of the grate and basically hold it tight. I didn't have these springs on my 445, so I didn't know that that was a thing until, as I was cutting old bolts and stuff off of this shroud, there was a broken spring on here, and I was curious what it was for. I thought maybe it was for the hood latch, but it's not. But then these grate pieces that I'm pretty sure I bought either on eBay or I can't really remember, but I don't think they came with the tractor. I'm pretty sure this is one of the only things that I was missing were these grates. They didn't exist anymore. And these grates, somebody chopped up the top. I'm not sure what the reasoning was for that, but yeah, they hacked out this section of the grate. So I won't be able to secure it that way anyway. But it was interesting that those are supposed to be held in with the springs. And then I got the hood latch, and so that functions. The issue that I have is I have two different hoods. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use yet, but I don't think either one of them has the pin that this connects to. So I'm going to have to potentially fab something to make that work. So that's basically what the front grill and everything consists of. The side panel sheet metal kind of comes in and bends around this, and so now that I've got this far, I really need to actually bring those side panels down, put them on, and make sure that this lines up nice with that flange that these seat in. So I'll probably end up doing that this weekend too, but realistically I'd like to have all this stuff cleaned up, and I'd like to get the tractor back up on blocks and start hanging plastic and start getting these components hung so that in the next 2-ish weeks I could get this thing painted. Another thing that I pulled out of my Moline treasure box is front grille emblems. This is the one that was originally on this tractor. If I can make it stand nice. Sure, it worked before. Guess we'll edit that out. There we go. So it's indented pretty good across the top. It's missing a section down here. It's broken out right here. Salvaging this one is, if I had to use it, I would, but I do have an alternative, which is this one, which is in quite a bit better shape. There at least aren't the bends and breaks in it, but it is indented. It definitely has hit things in its lifetime. So I may very gingerly try to straighten some of that out. Admittedly, much like the point that I like to make that I'm not a mechanic, I'm not much of an auto bodyman either. So I'll do what I can, but I don't want to risk making it worse than it already is. Ideally, if I could at least get it to sit so that all of the edges were flat and we don't have gaps in it like that, I'd be happy. So I'm going to do a little bit of work on that, and then we'll get it painted. I'm going to go over the 445 and show you what that looks like. I know my front emblem is immaculate compared to this one, but that one had to be hand painted too before I put it back on the tractor. So yeah, a little bit of work left to do, but we're getting much closer. So yeah, just for the comparison, so here's my front emblem on the 445. You can see that it's got a little bit of the same indent, but this is much straighter yet. It seals up really nice against the front cross all the way around. So ideally, I'd like the other emblem to replicate this as closely as I can, but I don't know if I'm going to get it there. And then as far as the shroud goes, there's the holes for those springs, but like I said, I didn't know that was a thing. So I use this one for a ground for the headlights. But you can see the grill comes up to a nice square edge on both sides, and that's where those springs would attach and like hold this snug up against that ring. But yeah, the other one got cut out. And then the hood latch and the pin for the hood latch, which, like I said, the other two hoods don't have, and I haven't looked yet, but I don't even know if they have this plate to be able to put like a bolt, because I'm guessing that wasn't the original latch either. Somebody did that secondhand, and it wasn't me, but I've never even looked that close to realize that that was just the head of a bolt and not like a shaped pin. So we'll have to replicate something like that. I will say that this works out really well. I've never had a problem with the hood not latching and latching tight. So if I can replicate that, I will. But yeah, just wanted to give you an idea. So yeah, for tonight, we're gonna call it good. I appreciate those of you that have been following the channel and the newer subscribers. Thank you very much for subscribing. But yeah, we can definitely use some more support. So if you're making it to the end of the video, I thank you. And remember, take your foot off the clutch. Thanks, everybody.